Morning. It is Wednesday, I think, right? The 22nd. Got the planter mostly greased. I need to grease the markers. Yeah, I just pulled it out of the shed and unfolded, so I can't really get to the zerks on those, wherever they are on the backside here. With the wings folded up. Got the next variety put in. I needed to adjust some stuff inside here to make sure we are singulating properly, which means getting one seed every time you want to drop a seed and not a double or a skip. Just because this particular seed is a little bit bigger than what I was planting yesterday. So should be good to go on that. Greased all the main pivot points, or at least the lift stuff, where we have metal on metal. And just gonna kind of look things over and grease those two zerks on the markers, and then should be ready to go to the field. We are rolling along, planting some corn. Got everything moving here this morning, and looks like things are planting good with the new variety here. Whenever we switch seed sizes, kind of try to watch the monitor and to make sure that we're getting consistent population across the rows. The way that the singulation works on this, there's a brush inside those drums that are spinning around that is kind of designed to knock extra seeds out of the pockets. So it needs to be adjusted based on the size of the seed that you're planting, so that it doesn't knock all of the seed out of the pocket if you're planting a big seed and have the brush adjusted too tight. And it's also kind of a loose adjustment, so if you end up with it tighter at the front than the back, you can end up with one row planting higher population just because the brush is uneven across the inside of the drum. So that's kind of what we're looking for here. The reason that I waited till this morning to finish this field off is mostly that I'm going to have to manually drive the outside pass over here next to the stalks, and wanted to be able to see what I was doing. Plus there's kind of some unevenness up at the other end to go around the building site. So I thought it would probably be best to be able to see what I was doing. But things seem to be going well. Even though these Cyclo planters are kind of considered old technology, they really do pretty well as long as you have them adjusted right, we think at least, or I don't think that it's necessarily the limiting factor in my yield potential at this point. The biggest thing that you have to be careful about is mostly just that you don't drive very fast. The thing that's kind of different about them is that instead of metering the seed right over the row unit like a lot of other planters do, they meter at the seed module there where the drum's spinning, and then shoot the seed down a plastic tube. So if you're driving fast, you end up with a lot of inaccuracy because some of those seeds will travel faster down the tube than others. But as long as you drive slow enough that your spacing doesn't suffer too much, really like the red row units better than the other colors for the most part. The leading disc works a lot better in no-till, in our opinion, and doesn't require a lot of extra add-on stuff. Well, got a little problem. We're not making much of a mark at the moment, which is kind of par for the course with these planters. Although the row units do really well with no-till, the markers are not very heavy duty. And you can actually see exactly how much this one's bent, which it's been involved in some altercations over the years. But in no-till, when you hit hard spots or whatever, soft spots that it digs in, or variability in the field, you end up digging in a lot and then putting a lot of pressure on the blade. So this is kind of the incoming side. So I think we're going to try it there for the time being. I don't want it set super aggressive. So we'll see how it does. I'm going to crank down on these bolts a little bit more. Since I'm running the auto steer, you would think that I maybe wouldn't need markers, but it really helps a lot to be able to get lined back up for the next pass. I think some GPS systems you can do, like have it automatically turn on the headland, but if this one will do that, it doesn't seem great at it, or I don't know how to do it the right way, possibly also. One of the other things that I've noticed with this planter setup, I think, or this tractor setup, I think this tractor is longer than the tractor that we planted with before, and since we only have 24 rows on the ends, it's kind of tight getting turned around. But if I was doing 36 row headlands, it would be easier to let the auto steer get lined up instead of having to do it manually. That was the hopper alarm. Always freaks me out the first time it goes off because I'm not expecting it, and there's actually not anything wrong, but it makes the same noise as if a row is plugged. So in the latest adventure, I had a thing on the tractor here showing instrumentation fault, or INST fault, which I assume is instrument or instrumentation or something like that. And it appears that I have no fuel gauge. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera at all. And I'm showing 0 gallons down on the display here, which also isn't showing up. What would cause the fuel gauge to register 0 gallons when there's 100 in there? No idea. I've not had that happen in the past. I've got basically 1 pass left in this field, or at the time that it happened I had a round, so a pass forward and back. So I think I'm gonna finish the field here and then basically reboot the tractor and see if that fixes itself, or if I need to be careful. I don't think I should be able to run out of fuel today if it was showing the right thing this morning, but I don't really want to have that happen, so if I can't get a working fuel gauge, I'll probably just top the tractor off before I head to the next field. It's Wednesday evening, and you might notice the planter is a little bit shiny, and that's not because I waxed it. There was a little chance of rain overnight, which I thought had gone down, and didn't seem like there was anything on the radar. Kind of was trying to get some patches finished up. Would have liked to finish the field, but that wasn't going to happen. The day didn't go too terribly, other than I ended up probably wasting an hour and a half or 2 hours dealing with some father of a calf poop, we'll say. Not related to farming at all, just a hassle. And that sort of slowed things down, plus the field that I was in isn't a nice flat square one, so there's a bunch of point rows and contours, and you turn around twice as much as you plant, it seems like. So I got probably 2/3 done with that, something in that range, and was on the way home and it started sprinkling, and by the time I got back to the shop, or to the shed here, I guess, to be technical, it was coming down pretty decent, and it's starting to let up now. Maybe at the beginning of the video you could hear it in the background, but rain hitting a tin shed roof is kind of loud. Basically now I get to deal with stuff that's wet. I didn't get rained on a lot, so I don't think there's anything too crazy that I'm gonna have to mess with. It got things wet, but not wet, or the ground wasn't wet enough that it was throwing up mud off the tractor tires or anything really. I mean, there's mud stuck to the tires, but nothing thrown up on the planter. However, we've got water dripping on the drums, which means that the seed in the drums could have some water in it, so probably I'm gonna have to pull those off and dump the seed out. I mean, not to waste, but just so that it can get some air and dry off. So probably just lay that out somewhere in the shed here. And I had a couple of extra bags in the back that got a little wet, which should just be on the outside of the paper, but probably we'll try to set them in a different spot so that we can kind of make sure that they get good and dried out also. I mean, it's several layers of paper, and I think it's waxed on the inside, so this amount of rain shouldn't hurt anything, but who knows. So I don't know what this means for tomorrow yet. It was supposed to rain more tomorrow evening and Friday, and I don't know what the latest is on that. I don't know how much we're going to end up with out of this little cell that went through here today. I mean, I guess when I looked at the radar after I got home, it like kind of came from the northeast, which is a really strange weather pattern from here. So I don't know what's going on exactly. So we'll just have to see what things look like in the morning and figure out what we're doing from there. The other frustration, which I'm not sure if I mentioned in a previous video or not, but one of the things that is really going to haunt my dreams about using this tractor to plant with is that when you put this planter in the ground, you have to basically force the hydraulics down and then put it into float, which just means that you're basically picking the wheels up all the way so that you're against the stops, and then when you put it into float, then hydraulic fluid can move back and forth depending on the weight distribution, which mostly is so that the wings flex up and down for the hillsides. And on the tractor that I used before, it was a lever with a detent, so you would go into the down position, and then if it hit the stop, it would pop back, or you could go into float and it would stay in float. With this, since it's electric over hydraulic, it seems really easy to have it locked in the down position instead of float, and then after you get a ways into a pass, the monitor will go off that a row isn't planting, and it's hard to tell when it stopped planting, or I mean if that was a 2-foot skip or a 20-foot skip or what. So I've been, I guess, uncertain whether I needed to go back and replant stuff, and I have in some spots and not in others. We'll just have to see how things look when it comes up, I guess. Hopefully not everything looks like it was planted by a drunken sailor, but we'll see. It's Thursday morning, April 23rd, right? So it rained last night, not a lot, but enough that the dirt's sticky on top. I don't think it's going to slow things down a lot, but probably at least half a day is kind of my impression at this point. Plenty of things to do, so that's not going to be a problem. Just doing different things than I thought I might be. I think probably the first order of business, I'm going to get some sprayer stuff set up and get the water tank filled so that that's ready to go. We'll see what happens, I guess. Just depends on how much the sun shines. As you can see, it is shining right now, but it's fairly cloudy. So it just kind of depends on how things dry out. I don't think there's supposed to be very much wind today, or at least there wasn't, because originally I was planning to spray today because there wasn't going to be wind. So it's a good day for spraying, but a bad day for drying ground out in order to spray, I guess. Also, since I got that field half planted yesterday, or 2/3, would really like to get that finished before the next round of showers come, which it looks like there's a fair chance tonight and tomorrow. So that is maybe going to be a priority if it gets dry enough to do that later in the day, mid-afternoon or whatever. So always an adventure. The other possible or maybe likely to do item is I might work on the air conditioning on this if I'm going to have a few hours to play with. At least try to flush out some lines and see if there's junk in them or if things are pretty clean. If I end up having to flush the entire system, I think it's the evaporator, if I have my terminology right, the part that cools the air in the cab, is underneath the seat. And I think to get to those line connections to be able to clean stuff, you have to take the seat out, which may be complicated since all of the controls for the tractor are in that armrest that's attached to the seat. So not sure exactly what we're going to get into on that, but we might find out later this morning. It's Thursday evening, and I'm planting some corn. I got the field that I started yesterday, finished up this afternoon, and started on another one. This one's only about 29 acres, so I thought that that would be a good candidate as something that I could safely get done and then see whether or not it rains tonight. Haven't been able to take video very easily just because where I've been working I've had to drive manually, and it's kind of hard to run a camera and do a good job of this. So hopefully I don't screw anything up royally here in the next 200 yards. But things went fairly smoothly, I guess. I mean, obviously it dried off pretty nicely. Probably could have started a little bit earlier than I did, but was kind of trying to figure out air conditioning stuff on this, which I don't think that the system is contaminated as bad as I originally feared, but I did find out that the receiver dryer I got doesn't seem to be right. So that means I don't have the parts to put things back together, even if I don't flush it. So probably what's going to happen is I'm going to end up suffering through the rest of corn planting, because I'm almost done at this point anyway, and then try to get it fixed right sometime this summer or whenever I have some free time, when it's too windy to spray or too hot to do anything else interesting, I guess. I don't know where I was going with that, honestly. Too busy thinking about where my planter is, I guess. Anywho, it's about to get dark, so that's going to be probably it for today. We'll report back when I know if it rains.